early results are in. An overwhelming majority of people in northern Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region have voted yes for independence.
We're here celebrating because we made a Kurdish state today. We're Kurdish people. We're not Arab, we're not Persian, we're no one else. We're Kurds and we'll remain Kurds forever.
Baghdad swiftly came out and said it will not recognize the results. But the referendum defied warnings from many other corners of the world. Turkey, the US, and Britain argued the timing of the vote will jeopardize Iraq's security. The U.S.'s State Department says it's deeply disappointed that the Kurdistan Regional Government decided to conduct today a unilateral referendum on independence, including in areas outside of the Iraqi Kurdistan region. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also condemned it, saying it could have potentially destabilizing effects. The vote may have been a yes or no question on administrative independence, but including the disputed Kirkuk province is controversial. Kirkuk was taken by Kurdish Peshmerga forces in 2014 to drive out Daesh, but Baghdad accuses the KRG of a land grab. And Kirkuk is ethnically mixed, made up of Kurds, Turkmen, and Arabs.
Kirkuk was historically Turkmen, but we coexisted with Kurds, Arabs, and Christians. God forbid that this ethnic project for independence causes tension and conflict.
The province is also oil-rich and an important source of income for the whole of Iraq. During the vote, Iraqi police enforced a curfew, saying it was to keep the peace. But there are fears Baghdad may try to take back Kirkuk by force. As for the KRG's next course of action, immediate independence won't happen anytime soon. Kurdish leader Masoud Barzani says the yes result is a mandate to negotiate better terms from Baghdad.
We are ready to give it as much time as needed, 1 year, 2 years, and if we see constructive dialogue with Baghdad, we can give it more time too. But I want to underline that we are never going to renegotiate the failed partnership that we had in the past.
Daima Kuzey Irak yönetiminin yanında oldu. Ancak bizim aynı zamanda Irak'ta Arap kardeşlerimiz de var. Türkmen kardeşlerimiz var. Ezidiler, Keldaniler, Süryaniler, onlar da var. Sadece bir şahsın veya aşiretinin hayat alanı değildir. Bunun böyle bilinmesi lazım.
While the KRG denied the referendum would stoke tensions, the region is already responding. Turkey and Iraq are holding joint military drills near a border crossing into northern Iraq. Ankara fears the vote will provoke further separatist ambitions. President Erdogan has also warned that Turkey may cut off access to a pipeline, which the KRG depends on to sell hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil a day to the rest of the world. The KRG got the result it wanted, a symbolic win after decades of struggle. But is Iraq's Kurdish leadership prepared to face what may come next? Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Well, I'm joined now by Selim Atalay. He's a journalist and commentator for Turkish news channel 24 TV here in Istanbul. In Erbil, we have Peter Galbraith. He's a former U.S. ambassador and author of the book The End of Iraq. And in Madrid, Ibrahim al-Marashi. He's an Iraq analyst and author of The Modern History of Iraq. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Peter Galbraith, let me begin with you. I know you support this referendum. You support the bid for independence. Doesn't it matter that Baghdad and all the big countries in the region surrounding northern Iraq are against this referendum? They won't recognize it, they haven't recognized it, and they will do anything in their power to stop the repercussions of it. Doesn't it matter?
Of course it matters, but it doesn't change the situation, which is that in what every observer has said was a free and fair vote of the people in the Kurdistan region. They voted overwhelmingly, my guess is more than 90%, to establish an independent state. And in the 21st century, since 1991, we've had 28 new countries created. all of them as secessions from existing countries, many of them through referendum. And international law has evolved to the point where, and indeed this is in the UN Charter expressing the right of self-determination of peoples, other treaties, that there is a right of self-determination that's now been exercised. So, and Kurdistan already is a sovereign state. There's no Iraqi presence here in Kurdistan. It has its own army, it controls its own borders, it has its own government. Iraqi law doesn't apply here. So it's not a very big step from what exists now to full independence. When other countries broke up, for example, Yugoslavia, and I was the first U.S. ambassador to Croatia, the entire international community tried to keep Yugoslavia together. They condemned Slovenia and Croatia for moving for independence. And within 6 months, Croatia and Slovenia were internationally recognized within 9 months of their declaration
Fair
of
enough,
independence.
but that also caused the death of hundreds of
Nations.
thousands of people. That also caused the death of hundreds of thousands of people. That's what the neighbors are warning about. They're saying the region's already a mess, it's chaotic. Do you want to have a repeat of what happened when Yugoslavia broke up because hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives?
Well, that's a good point, but it was not possible to hold Yugoslavia together. What was possible was to avoid the war, and that ought to be the situation today. Incidentally, Iraq's been around for 100 years, and I don't think anybody would argue that it's been a very stable nation. Its existence has involved the deaths of millions of people, including hundreds of thousands of Kurds in a genocide in the 1980s. So, from the Kurdish point of view, staying in Iraq is a formula for staying in a country that they feel has failed them, and that poses a risk to their very existence.
Okay.
So this is, yes, it's a move for a 100-year-old dream for independence, but it's also very much a rejection of Iraqi history.
Selim Atalay, they have a right. Let them decide and let them break away if they want to.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Ambassador is just tailoring whatever he thinks is fair and lawful. First of all, just minutes ago, Turkish Foreign Minister was on 24 TV, Channel 24, my TV network, and he said, first of all, he called Kurds as brothers, and he said, we have done everything for our Kurdish brothers for their success in Erbil and elsewhere. Now, this decision, this unilateral and illegal decision, is provocative, inflammatory, is very dangerous. And Mr. Ambassador, with all due respect, yes, he was in Croatia, and he was a hero in Croatia, so-and-so in Timor maybe, but not so in Afghanistan, and now he's back to Kurdistan, as we know. Mr. Ambassador, I'm smelling oil. Your presence there indicates there's an oil aspect going on.
I don't want to get ad hominem with Peter Galbraith here, and I've addressed it with him in an interview in the past, right? He's made money from oil deals in northern Iraq. I've addressed it before, but we're talking about the vote here. Let's not get ad hominem with each other and compare our CVs here. Ibrahim Al-Marashi, do you think that the Kurds of northern Iraq have a right to decide their future in this vote at this time?
I'll divide your comments. So, do the Kurds have the right to decide their future? Yes. At this time, the timing couldn't have been worse. ISIS is still not defeated in Iraq. It still has a presence there, and a potential disagreement between the KRG and Baghdad has hurt the fight against ISIS in the past. Further acrimony will only inhibit and impede a common campaign to rid Iraq of ISIS.
Peter Galbraith, there's a fight against ISIS right now, or Daesh, as is commonly known in the region. They're finally on the back foot. Why take your eye off the ball with this problem right now? Isn't that a reasonable argument, Peter?
Well, it may be a reasonable argument. I want to address one point. There's nothing in the Iraqi constitution that prohibits Kurdistan from conducting a referendum. The Constitution is very clear on the powers of the federal government. Those powers do not include elections. Therefore, under the Constitution, they fall under the power of the regions. And anybody can read Article 110 and 115 to see that that's very clear. With regard to ISIS, the Kurdistan government has made clear that the Peshmerga will continue their campaign against ISIS. I think it's very important to understand that in 2014, the Iraqi army behaved like cowards. There were 30,000 of them in Mosul. They were attacked by maybe 2,000, maybe just 1,000 terrorists with pickup trucks. They ran away. In Kirkuk, it's not true that the Peshmerga came and took it over. The Iraqis abandoned it for 36 hours before they told the governor, we're going to stay in Kirkuk, and then they just disappeared. And it was only because the Peshmerga were already there that Daesh didn't take Kirkuk.
Okay, so let's ask Ibrahim.
I mean, I think it's one needs to give a fair rendering of the history.
Okay, so let's take that. Ibrahim, they feel they were undervalued in the fight against Daesh. They feel they did all the heavy lifting as the Peshmerga, and they will continue to do it, whether they have an independent country or not, but they prefer to have an independent country. Address that claim, Ibrahim.
First of all, I wouldn't say the Iraqi army, the soldiers, the military collapsed, but I still wouldn't call it in a blanket term they were cowards. A good number of the Iraqi soldiers were captured, they were massacred on sight. The Iraqi military was run by a corrupt political system, and that's why they collapsed. So I think we have to make that distinction. The Peshmerga fought valiantly. The Iraqi army was able to reconstitute itself and to fight back. But what we've seen against in the fight against ISIS is it doesn't seem one actor can do it alone. There needs to be cooperation. I would say Mosul fell because the KRG had sent intelligence to the central government of Baghdad. Baghdad didn't act upon that. What this is saying that at this time, cooperation will be more effective in rooting out ISIS rather than having a vote for independence will kind of be a wedge in between all these players when they need to cooperate.
Let's have a little listen to Masoud Barzani and look at some of the thinking behind why they feel that this is the time for them. Let's have a listen to Masoud Barzani.
For freedom, we are ready to pay any price. We are at a junction in the road, either to choose independence or subordination and oppression.
So there's a binary there, Salim.
Yes.
It's independence or it's oppression. Tell me why you disagree with that.
Okay, there used to be a Federal Republic of Iraq, and which had a proper constitution, which one of the parties here have also contributed. And now the founding father of the Iraqi constitution and the federal government is now celebrating its dismemberment. I don't know how we came from that point to this point. Now, calling it the Republic of Iraq or Iraqi government as defunct is requires little more than legality, the current situation. De facto votes within the same family are always very debatable. How much free speech was there? How much of a free voting took place? And I'm hoping we can also have time to discuss whether Kirkuk should really be included in this referendum.
So let's bring in Kirkuk. Ömer Çelik, the Turkish EU minister, saying if Barzani insists having a freedom after the results, every weapon that has been given to the Peshmerga can be used against the Turkmen, the Arabs, and other minorities of Iraq. There's that fear with regards Kirkuk, which is ethnically diverse, right? Tell me why Turkey doesn't trust the KRG when it comes to Kirkuk.
Okay, recent history. The population of Kirkuk first cleansed and dismantled and repopulated. And during this process, we never could track properly the population, and there was no, as far as I know, there was no official census. There were no condition for a census also. But the track record shows that the population of Kirkuk is being artificially ballooned by the import of others from the neighborhood. And Turkmens have been complaining about this. Official records are systematically being destroyed, so there's no way to keep track of it. Iraqi conditions are obvious, and there's always that grab the oil, grab Kirkuk theme in the background.
Okay.
So that has been the constant theme.
Okay, Peter Galbraith, the rights of the Arab and Turkmen people in a place like Kirkuk, are they now under threat?